Welcome back, everyone. We're here at our alert desk once again. We're about 15 minutes away from polls closing, and it won't be too long after that we'll start getting results here on Erie News Now on our Facebook page. We've got election coverage for you all night here from our alert desk. This is the spot to be as we follow primary election results in today's municipal elections. So many races on the ballot. I'll be joined shortly by our producer who will break down what goes into Election Day coverage and everything that we've been working on now for quite some time, trying to make this all come together for you tonight so that you can see what's going on around our region and get an understanding of exactly who's running for what races and how those people are faring right now. For the time being, though, I want to take you to our election homepage. Here it is, erienewsnow.com/election, because this is your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about today's primary. In fact, right here you can see our link, 2021 primary election, what you need to know. We can find your polling place for you. You can still go vote for another 13 minutes. And as long as you are at your polling place by 8 o'clock, you are legally allowed to vote. You can't be turned away as long as you are there on time. So you do still have a little bit of time left to vote. If that's something you still need to get done today, don't worry. We'll take a look at some sample ballots on here as well. We'll answer questions that you might have. We'll tell you about mask wearing policies. But really what we'll do is we'll break down those big races and show you the ins and outs of the top races that we're taking a look at on a Tuesday afternoon as we determine really the future of Erie County and how our area, how the county and the city will look for the next 10, 15, maybe 20 years. Now, it's fair to say, why would a local election, most terms are 2 to 4 years, why would that have such a huge bearing on the next decade or so? After all, we're electing people for a handful of years, but it all has to do with the money coming into our area. We're talking millions of dollars coming into Erie County and to the city of Erie, and how that money is spent shapes our area for decades. This is really your once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing. You don't often see spending like this, but because of the stimulus deals that were reached, we're really seeing a big influx of money, big money coming into our area. It's not going to happen again. And the communities that spend it well are going to position themselves well to succeed in the future. And the communities that spend it poorly are going to put themselves behind the 8 ball for decades to come. That's why this is so important. That's why these races matter so much. That's why it's kind of interesting as you look up and down the ballot, as I'm doing right now. There's not a ton of political experience here. I'm looking really at the big county positions and some of the big city positions right here. We've got county executive down through county council, and I've got the Erie mayoral race here on our next page as we look through all of these races. A lot of these people are either political newcomers or they don't have a ton of political experience, and that begs the question, what does that mean going forward? Because do you want that firebrand in, somebody who hasn't been through the political system, somebody who some might say hasn't been corrupted by politics? Or do you look for somebody who has that experience and kind of knows how to maneuver in situations like these? All valid questions, ones that we don't have answers to, though, because, well, we can't know what the voters want. But they'll determine that very, very soon. Again, polls closing in just 10 minutes, and that is when we will start getting answers for you. We, of course, have all of that information on our website, erienewsnow.com/election, and we'll be following all of the voter turnout for you this evening as well. After all, here's a look at that Erie County Sheriff's race. This one's shaping up to be rather interesting because of all the controversy that has arisen during the campaign. Ordinarily, sheriff is one of those races that you don't pay all that much attention to, but these are candidates who, all three of whom, both of the two Democrats you see on your screen and Brian Shank on the Republican side, have had issues come to light during the campaign. You could almost call it a dirty campaign. In fact, that's the way our Lisa Adams referred to it earlier tonight. So this race has got kind of outsized attention, but once we start getting numbers in, we'll see where the voters are leaning tonight. Again, remember, it's primary night, so we're not putting anybody into office tonight, but we are aligning people to win offices in November, and folks who lose this evening see their political dreams end. Folks who win this evening move on to the next stage of the game, where we have the general election in November. Again, less than 10 minutes to go until polls close. We'll need a little bit of time after that before we start having results. And mail-in ballots change the ballgame on all of this as well, because we might not have results tonight. There are going to be some races that will be so close that they might not be decided until we have every single mail-in ballot and actually every write-in counted. The good news is that I've got somebody who can break all of this down for us. We're going to pop to our screen here on erienewsnow.com just so that we can get situated. Our guest of honor here as we get ready for results to come in, somebody who has had a hand in our election coverage long before today. He's the mastermind behind everything you see on air. He is all mic'd up and ready to go, so we welcome him in. It is Alex Popachak, our producer, our executive producer here at Erie News Now. He has just finished up our 5:30, and 6 o'clock shows. Did you do the 7s today as well?
No, I did not.
No, you got a quick breather for half an hour.
Exactly.
He's working on the 10 right now. And Alex, for folks who don't get a chance to see this every day, what goes into plotting out a strategy for election night? Because it's not like we just mosey in on election day and bam, here's our coverage.
Absolutely. If we did that, we'd be caught unprepared, and you don't want that on an election night. So we start our planning, months in advance, talking about what races we want to focus in on, what's contested. Basically, as soon as the counties have decided what their ballot looks like, we then use that as our starting place to decide, okay, we'll focus in on these races, you have these things that are contested, and we kind of go from there. And a lot of, like, in the 2 or 3 weeks leading up, you test your graphics, you make sure that everybody knows what race they're following so they can read up on it and sound, intelligent on what we have going on. And that way, when it comes to go time, when it comes to tonight, everybody is familiar with the candidates, has touched base with one another, and they know where they're going. And then we bring that along to you.
And that's something that you folks at home don't always get a chance to see. You see the product we put on air this evening, but you don't see the dozens of people who actually work a lot harder than we do and do the actual important work and make all of this happen. So you might remember, Alex, from the investigation we did. My God, was that 3 months ago now?
It's something like that. It was March. Yeah, it was
so 2.5.
Yeah.
Many moons ago, we looked into the way the county had spent its first round of stimulus money. But Alex, I bring that up because, at least to me and to many of the experts we've had on tonight, that's the pivotal issue in this primary. It's who are we moving closer toward trusting with millions of dollars.
Yeah, and that's both on a county level with your county executive's race and the individual mayorship, because in this particular round of funding, you have millions of dollars going to the city of Erie. You have millions of dollars going to Meadville and Warren cities directly. And so whoever is being elected now and into November is going to have a lot of say over how that money gets spent and what the next chapter of the economy locally looks like, how you recover economically from a pandemic like this.
Yeah, and this is not a 3-page chapter.
No.
This is one of the pivotal chapters in the book. This is 20 years, maybe more.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Again, dust off your history knowledge here. When was the last time money flowed like this out of FDR?
Maybe,
You're probably looking, New Deal.
Exactly. You're talking millions and millions of dollars being pumped directly into localities for projects to improve those localities. So it's really fascinating to watch and fascinating to hear what people think, why they want to take on these positions, whether it be anything from county executive to mayor.
It certainly is. Let us know in the comments. We're going to throw you a curveball here.
Oh, geez.
Yes. Let us know what you'd like us to look into next. We're looking for our next investigative project. Give us ideas below. Speaking of this money, Alex, and somewhere where we might end up going with all of this, somewhere where we're going to see a lot of money pumped, schools.
Oh, yeah.
Education and education spending is going to be a massive story over the next 4 to 5 years, because there's going to be a window where districts have to spend this money. And we're putting people closer to school boards tonight.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And what you also have is The pandemic tested a lot of different structures and governmental structures, and one of those that was hit very hard was schools and what kind of infrastructure they have. How do you move classes online and that kind of a thing. And a lot of these decisions you found, and even today, when a school has to make a decision of we're going to go remote for the week, that's made by the superintendent and by the school board, whom you are members of whom you are electing today and into November. So these folks have a lot of impact on your day-to-day lives, especially if you're a parent.
Yeah, your day-to-day life is affected a lot more by these people than by the fellow you put in the White House 6 months ago.
Exactly.
Nobody comes out to vote in municipal primaries, but these are the ones that matter.
Well, exactly. And, we got the figure around 6:15 that we had a 17.89% voter turnout in Erie County as of 6 p.m. That's abysmal. I don't care who you talk to. When you're talking about a 17% voter turnout, these folks, as we just mentioned, have a lot of say over your lives, everywhere from your Supreme Court down to your county executive and to your school directors. And it's a bit of a shame. You have every 4 years you get a lot of play on the presidential election and these federal races, but then the local ones in between don't. And I don't know if they're not as flashy or people aren't as aware of what these offices do, but when you see something like that, it's a little, it's interesting to see, and I hope that that number is impacted by like mail-in ballots or something like that, where we're going to find out that 30% of people showed up, but I don't.
Hoping,
maybe
a third of people voted.
Yeah, and that's editorializing, but I truly believe it.
It's not editorializing to say that you hope that people participate in the franchise.
True.
That is not editorializing at all. I'm looking up online here to see what people are commenting, see if we have some questions. I'm not just ignoring you and chilling on my phone.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Allegedly.
You're fine. And how about you, manning the alert desk here for the better part of the afternoon and into the evening?
Alex, I'm convinced that this was your idea just to get rid of me.
No,
It's like, let's put Kibbe back at the alert desk. Then nobody has to deal with him. This secret's coming out on Erie News now. Yes.
Maybe. No.
So, why was there not a governor listed today on the roster? That's a good question. And I see Brian Shank is watching. Councilman, sheriff candidate, however you would like to be addressed this evening, sir. Thanks for watching here. We'll go with councilman for now. Someone asking why there wasn't a governor listed. Wait 1 year. Hang in there. Next year is going to be nuts. Which we get excited about. Right, which is crazy. But between midterm elections and a gubernatorial election,
whew. Well, and especially in Pennsylvania, where you have promised change on several different fronts, because the incumbent either termed out or is retiring from their post. In the case of Senator Pat Toomey, he's not running for re-election, so that's wide open on either side of the ballot. Governor, you have Governor Wolf, who's terming out in Pennsylvania, wide open on either side, and a lot of candidates have made their intentions known. So that's going to be a really interesting one, especially in light of what happens tonight with the statewide amendments and referenda. What powers will that governor have? Whoever assumes that role come next year in next year's election, it's a fascinating time. It's always a fascinating time, but it's especially a fascinating time in Pennsylvania politics.
Right. This midterm here is kind of our chance to see where the electorate is moving, and it's not uncommon after a presidential election to see, especially 2 years later in midterms, things kind of move back. So we move toward the left with President Biden. Do we start moving toward the right? My prediction on that is yes. I expect, especially the main two ballot amendments, to pass.
Yeah.
Just a guess, an educated guess. I expect them to pass, and I think you're going to see Republican candidates do fairly well come November. But it's hard to say. And what does that mean for midterms, the governor's race? It all marries together if you're willing to study it.
Oh, yeah. And again, it goes up and down the ballot. That's the reason why they call it down ballot, because it's all on the same ballot. They're all elected positions. Everybody from the person in the White House to, they used to say dog catcher. I don't think we elect a dog catcher, but you have, clerk of
Constable or
exactly.
tax collector.
Exactly.
In some position, and I mean, that is the case. And we're trying to do everything we can to make sure you're an informed voter here. There are still, voting today,
Yes.
there were just a couple races where I'm like, who?
Exactly.
And obviously I study this for a living. And I'm sure you had the same thing where you're like,
Oh, yeah.
ooh, I don't know who this is.
Oh, yeah. And, there are a lot of resources. And we do this for primaries. We do this for general elections. ErieNewsNow.com/election has a lot of resources. And especially now, it's, we're at 8 o'clock and the polls have closed. If you're in line, stay in line, please. But the polls have closed and you're going to start getting those results. But when it comes to, into November and comes into the next primary season, that's the same link every single time. ErieNewsNow.com/election, and you can find out about who's on your ballot. And I think it pays to spend 20 minutes the day before the election to look up who are these folks and what do they do. I think we did a decent job yesterday of explaining the judge race. 3 courts that you don't think too much about until they're in the news. That were all up for at least one seat up for election.
Yeah, and think of how much of a say the state Supreme Court has had over your life in the
yeah.
last year. The state Supreme Court, there were challenges to the governor's shutdown orders, and in fact, remember, the state Supreme Court declared some of those unconstitutional.
Oh, yeah.
It also threw out challenges to Pennsylvania's handling of the election. It decided not to hear cases related to that. It said that ballots that were postmarked on time but that arrived late could be counted. All of these things have direct effects on your life. But I'll bet you dollars to donuts that 90% of people who voted today had no clue on the judges about whom they were voting.
And that goes into, I mean, I can get up on the soapbox all day about civics education, but I think a lot of it then falls on us to be able to explain, a rough outline of what these folks are responsible for. But still, it's a lot to wrap your head around. I mean, to be completely fair to your voters, it's a lot to look at. I mean, it's a double-sided, really long ballot to look at today.
It's huge and it's complicated.
But, taking a little time to invest in it, I think, goes a very far way,
Good news, we have officially closed polls all over Erie County. Again, if folks are still in line, they absolutely get to vote as long as you're in line by 8 o'clock. It's not like being at the mall where they kick you out and they pull down the gate and be gone with thee. So there are still a handful of people voting right now, but not many. And we should start having results really soon tonight. Again, we're talking with Alex Popacek. He's our executive producer here at Erie News Now. He is the mastermind behind everything you see on our air. Show the kind people what's on your notepad right now.
My notepad is our rough outline and changes we are making to the 10 o'clock news based off of what we see.
Hold that up there. Give people a look at a rundown.
This is what a rundown looks like, and with all of my scribbles on it. I mean, we fire and adjust is kind of the best way of putting it. You come up with a plan. My job usually 9:30 to 6:30 every day. 9:30, you come up with a plan, and by noon it blows up. You move it, and by 2 it blows up again, and you just keep adjusting because that's how news works. And this is very much a part of the process, having conversations like this. But usually we don't stream our conversations. But
usually we sit back in an edit booth and scream together.
Well, yeah, and so you work through what are the critical issues, what are the critical races that we've been following. And again, coming up on Erie News Now at 10, we'll be presenting in as succinct a way possible what's going on across the region. But you're going to be hanging out here with our races on what's going on all night, and I really appreciate that because we can go into a little more depth than minute 40.
Yes, we don't just have to 90 seconds and get off the air. I want to give folks at home a treat here because this is something you're never going to get again. We're going to take our executive producer and we're going to make him go story by story through a show and explain how you put this all together, because I think sometimes there's this misconception that we just get together an hour before the show and are like, well, all right, we'll do this and call it good. But not that we are actors by any means. No. We're not. We're normal people. But it's a production, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of planning to get it just right, to take your 30 minutes of news and make sure that you at home know everything you need to know before you go to bed. So, if we can, flip that around for the kind people and kind of take us through how you stack a show top to bottom.
So one of the main things, and I'm not going to try and go too much into it, because actually in about 9 minutes I'm going to hop in and we may change this all over again. But right off the top, we're going to be talking about ballot issues in Erie County. That seems to be a major talker with us, and we're going to check in and see what is the latest, what do folks need to know, and what kind of impact this has, what has the county done, and look into it. And after that, we're going to go one by one through your key races. We're talking, the Erie mayor. We're talking the county executive. We're talking the sheriff's race, and where things stand and the first results that we're getting. Now, these are initial results. But yeah, and you kind of rank it in what has changed the most recently and work backwards from there. And then there are certain things that make sense to flow together. But at the end of the day, a lot of it is informed by what is happening right now and then what is happening next. Because that's kind of, with Erie News Now, you have the now and the next.
Right.
Because telling people what already happened doesn't help people.
Right.
In this case, we're telling them, hey, we're getting these results on these elections, so that's what happened. People voted, but what's happening now is we're getting the results. What's happening next is, then we'll see where those results go in November and even into tomorrow if there are any challenges on anything. But yeah, I mean, is that an explanation? It's one of those things where it's not a science. It's not an art form. It's somewhere in between. There's a lot of technical work that needs to go into it. But at the end of the day, you just have to think as a viewer, what do I want to know when I turn on the TV on the CW at 10? What do I want to know? When I turn on ICU or SEE at 11, what do I want to know right now? And usually it's what's going on right now.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. Hardest job in the building.
I wouldn't go that far, but
I've been on that side.
I'll take it.
Producing is the hardest thing in the world to do. You're right that it's not an art form and it's not a science, because it's not formulaic. It's not, okay, this is the exact right way to do it. So you would say, oh, okay, you can stack a show whatever way you want. Mm-hmm. Well, also, no. There are some show runs down you would look at and say, that is objectively wrong. Mm-hmm. Even though there's no right way to do it, but there are lots of wrong ways to do it.
I mean, for example, if I were to start the 10 o'clock news with the latest update on the 5th Ward, 3rd District constable race, that would probably be a not great way to start a newscast. Unless there's like some kind of scandal or something. I mean, most times there's a pretty clear cut, like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, and it's making those decisions, and that's why you have a news team. It's not, Alex stacking the shows and saying, there we go. It's, a real team effort as to how we put everything together.
Hey, we've got a few more minutes here with Alex Popacek, our executive producer. Do you have a few more minutes?
I don't know. It looks like folks are streaming in and kind of like looking for where I'm at.
Okay.
So
then we're going to ask you one more question, and then we're going to let you get back to the masses. He's also he's the third most in-demand person in the building. Everybody wants the news director. Everybody wants the assignment manager and assistant news director. And everybody wants Alex Popacek.
Well,
And it's a good day if you get 1 out of 3.
Well,
it's like a batting average. If you're batting, 300, it's a good day.
Mm-hmm.
So last question for you here as we transition to results coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mercifully. What are the big races that you've been keeping an eye on here? Because, again, nobody gets ready for Election Day quite like you do, because you have to. You have to be ready for it weeks in advance. What do you think? What do you think are the big ones? And then I want a bold prediction from you.
Ooh, a bold prediction? I don't know.
Not just the normal kind.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of my thoughts are what you're seeing on the air at night. So, I mean, the mayor's race is an interesting one because you have two challengers to an incumbent.
Which is bizarre.
Yeah, it's fairly interesting. And
a well-liked.
Yeah.
Incumbent.
So
scandal-free incumbent.
This is an interesting referendum on the because it's the end of his first term. What do folks think of Mayor Joe Schember? And then the county exec race to me is so fascinating in that you have 6 different people vying for this position. If you would have asked me a year ago, as we're doing pandemic shutdowns, what job do I not want in a million years? It is county executive. And now you have 6 folks that are stepping up saying they want the job. I think it could either be very close or it could be a complete blowout. I think in these local races you have a lot of working with name recognition. So I feel like that will be what you see in the results ultimately once it's all certified. So names that you've heard, such as Carl Anderson, such as Brenton Davis, names that you recognize from other things. But again, that's just a guy looking at some screens and hoping for the best. I don't know. I really don't.
And last one for you here. I know I told you that was, but can we just note that in that mayoral race, 4 years ago, the Republican candidate John Persinger gave Joe Schember all he wanted. I mean, a real run for his money.
That was a
incredibly
fantastic
close
race.
Here we are 4 years later. Members of the mayor's own party think he's beatable. No Republicans run for the job.
That's a curious one to me, especially when you had that kind of history and it's not like far distant history.
It's 4 years ago.
Yeah, and it's local politics. It's not like there's been the seismic shift on the party level locally that you would expect that kind of a thing. So I'm very fascinated to see how this shakes out. I do think that Schember retains his seat, but I don't know. What's going to be interesting is if he does, what's the margin there? Right. I mean, what do you end up seeing?
Right. So. And then again in November too. I mean, can you imagine being an incumbent who doesn't even have a mandate from his own party?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And again, there's also a lot riding on this particular mayoral race. You have $70 million or so that is coming as direct aid to the city of Erie. What do you do with that, and how do you write? Literally, how do you plot out and write the next chapter for the local economy? And I mean, it's a job I certainly don't envy, but I'll be interested to see who rises to the occasion and sees what they can accomplish.
Write-in campaign this November. Alex Pompachek, mayor of Erie. He qualifies, folks. He qualifies.
Oh my word!
We're going to let Alex get out of here. We'll throw up our blank screen of the shot of the city of Erie as we let our executive producer, Alex Pompachek, actually do his job and not sit back here and deal with me. But I have just launched his candidacy for mayor. We'll see him at City Hall in the fall. On a more serious note, we should have election results coming in here momentarily. So let's head on over to erienewsnow.com/election, and we'll pull up our site, see if we have anything so far. We can pull up our tab for latest election results, and let's see what the digital gods have blessed us with. So we do have some votes coming in. In fact, we have software that perhaps can better show you this. So let's try this right here. So we pull this up on our screen, and we'll see if we can't pull up some of the big races. Again, bear with us here as we kind of work through the technology. There is still, there are still, of course, some glitches in this, and we don't have a whole lot of data in, but we do have just a little bit. Here's one of those races that we were talking about. Again, not a lot of data in, but right now, this is on the Republican side for state Supreme Court. Patricia McCullough leading 50% of the vote, 8,000 votes for her. Kevin Brobson with 6,000 votes, and Paula Patrick with 2,000 votes. But we don't know at this point what precincts have reported those, or at least I don't have that right in front of my hands. So remember, this is a statewide office. So to see 8,000 votes, even with depressed voter turnout like we're seeing this year, 8,000 votes is a pittance. That's absolutely nothing. These are absolutely subject to change. We don't have any local results in just yet, but we do have data on some more races. So let's take a look at Superior Court. We'll try to pull that up for you. Again, these are Superior Court judges here on the Democratic side, because the race isn't contested on the Republican side. Everybody who is vying for the job on the Republican side already has it locked up. It's just Brian Neft who's running. So here we are again on the Democratic side of Superior Court. Jill Beck, 52,000 votes out to a commanding lead, and you would think, oh my goodness, she's going to run away with this. Remember, we don't know what areas of the state have reported. It could very well be her home county of Allegheny County that has started to put in some votes, and if that were the case, obviously she's going to do well in the area in which she is from. So lots to consider there. We have a little bit more information as well. Let me see what we can continue to try to pull up. We have some data on Commonwealth court judges on the Democratic side, so let's go ahead and see if we can't put those in front of you right now. Here's what we have. Again, this is a statewide office, so the fact that there are 180 or so thousand votes cast doesn't tell us very much. 61,000 votes for Amanda Green Hawkins. She leads the way, just ahead of David Spurgeon. Also, obviously, a Democrat. He comes highly recommended by the Bar Association, the judge who is also an adjunct professor at Duquesne University, trying to move on to the next rung of the judicial ladder, if you will. He's looking solid right now, as is Judge Amanda Green Hawkins. We do have some information perhaps on these amendments. Let's see what we have. Emergency Declarations Amendment. This is the first one on your ballot. This is the one asking about the legislature's ability to override declarations of emergency. Can the legislature kind of wrest power away from the governor? Right now, again, super early, voters saying no, that they're not a fan of that idea, that they think the governor should have that power. But again, we don't know what areas, what precincts have reported. So that's why it's really important to realize these are early results. Regardless of which way this goes, I guarantee you these numbers are going to tighten up. You're not going to see a 75-25 split. This is going to be much, much closer, but only time will tell where this really ends up. Let's look at some more of these declarations. Here's the first one. Here's the equal rights one. So we push this to air. See if we can't get that. Hang on one second. Our program trying to decide what it wants to do. Here's your, well, the emergency declarations one is just real fond of coming up. So we'll try the EMS loans. Hang on. See if we can't push this to air. At the moment, that's looking like a no. We are starting to get data on these, so just bear with us. We will get the information that you're looking for. Again, only 19% reporting there across the state on this so far. We are yet to get local election results. We just have the state races right now, but we will start getting the local stuff, I promise you that. And when we do, we'll bring it to you right here on Erie News Now on our Facebook page, as we are live at the Alert Desk, bringing you the latest information on everything we know. Here we are on erienewsnow.com/elections, and we're taking you through the judges' races that we already told you about. Let's roll through all of those. Here we have the Emergency Declarations Amendment and the Emergency Limits Amendment. You can see very similar percentages here because it's the same precincts reporting. We have a quarter of precincts reporting right now. Likely from heavily Democratic areas, judging by the split on those numbers. The Equal Rights Amendment, this one going very much in the opposite direction, also again suggesting that these are heavily Democratic areas that are voting on these amendments. Likewise, the Fire Department EMS loans referendum. That one determines whether or not what we call career fire departments, or paid fire departments, maybe another way to think of those, can apply for loans that right now are only available to volunteer fire departments. Everything suggests that the data we have right now is coming out of heavily Democratic, likely urban areas. These are not data from across the more rural parts of the state. Once that data starts pouring in, these numbers are going to tighten up. The question is to what extent, we don't know. Here we have our local races. You can see we have absolutely none of the data on any local race, which is not surprising. It's not surprising in the slightest that we're this early on and still don't have any local data, but you can see that across the state, numbers are starting to trickle in, and that means it won't be long until we start getting data on our local races as well. We're going to lay out for just one moment. We'll rejoin you at 8:30, and it is then that we will go live with polling results. We should have some data by then, so we'll start up a fresh stream at 8:30, and I hope you'll join me then as we bring you the latest results as they come into our alert desk. So we'll see you then. Thanks for joining us so far here on Erie News Now for all of your primary night coverage.